What is up, guys? Welcome back to Triple Play Fantasy Network. As always, I am your host, Kevin Coleman at @theboys_22. And on this edition of the kind of the YouTube channel, what we're going to do is like every Monday, I want to try to bring you guys a new mock draft. The season is coming to an end, and the fantasy playoffs are here finally after a long season. And it's never too early to start talking about some rookie mocks and some drafts that we're going to go into. So what we're going to go over is a way too early rookie mock. We're looking at this from a super flex 12-team dynasty perspective. Superflex 12-team dynasty perspective, non-tied in premium, so just a regular 12-team league. And I'm doing this in twofold. So one area I'm doing it is kind of my player projections, but at the same time, like how leagues will probably draft. If I was just doing it based on mine, it'd probably be a little different based on how I have them ranked. But I'm looking at a couple things. Positional advantage. We're looking at PPR, so 12-team Superflex PPR. So pass catching backs. I'm looking at it from, hey, where the quarterback's going to fall. This quarterback class is not the highest rated right now. I think a lot of things going to have to do with draft capital, how they're testing at the combine, all that stuff. I will say that's kind of cop out though when people say it. Like obviously it is, but right now we don't have that. So this is all supposed to be early. It's very based on early projections of what we're looking at. So I'm going to go through the top 12 where I think they're going to be, and then we'll go over it. So number one pick right now for me is Matt Corral, Ole Miss quarterback. The junior looks like he's going to be coming out as much as he wants to stay in. I don't think Lane's going to let him. This season, 260 for 380. He has 68% completion percentage, 3,300 yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And the key number there is 4 interceptions. Last year, the big knock on him was throwing 14 interceptions. He had some big games where he had 4 or 5 interceptions in the game. Didn't look great. He has improved that. He's improved his decision making. He's improved a lot of things about him this year that I really like. I think he has the arm talent. He certainly has shown that. He's looked great this season. They've only lost to Alabama and Auburn. They have a big game against Baylor, and he's going to play in that game. So that is one way to solidify his number one status. If he plays well against a tough Baylor squad, Aranda's got a great defense down there. I think we're looking at Matt Corral being the 101 in Superflex leagues just because of the positional advantages there. I don't think we're ever going to find a Superflex league where you don't take a quarterback one. I guess this class is a little bit down, but based on the way quarterbacks are going right now, you're looking at 12 different openings. You're going to probably take a quarterback based on positional advantage. Now, my next guy is a guy that's kind of getting crapped on right now. I don't know why. Sam Howell. Sam Howell has been a legitimate quarterback for the last 3 years. Yeah, his numbers went down this year. So he had 205 for 327. His completion percentage saw a dip. His yards saw a dip. He had 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So he said he did see a dip there. But you know what? That offense was awful this year. They lost absolutely everybody on that offensive team, especially from their weapons. They still had Josh Downs and those guys there. They didn't have a running game to speak of. Ty Chandler was okay. He did have 1,000 yards. But, when you're looking at what he was able to do, he just didn't have it. Now, Howell did have 800 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns. Is Howell a dual threat? No, he is not a dual threat. So please don't let people tell you that. But he can. He's functional athletically. So he can move around in the pocket a little bit. I don't think he'll be able to put up the rushing numbers that he was asked to do this year in the NFL. But he is functional there. But other than that, this team was just not great. Now, he did elevate it to a degree. He did have some throws that you could see that his arm talent is special. So to me, he's a very safe option, but I still think he's the 102 in Superflex leagues. I could see you maybe reaching for the next couple of guys that we're going to talk about based on your positional needs. If you're set at quarterback, I don't see you not maybe taking one here, just because I think that there are some question marks about this. But that's why we would talk about testing numbers where they go from. Now, my next guy at the 103 is my running back one, and that's Isaiah Spiller. So I'm still on the Spiller train as my running back one right now. It's very close. Him and Breece are very 1A, 1B to me. This season, he has 179 attempts, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He has 25 catches, 189 yards, and a touchdown. Texas A&M does a good job of splitting time. Devin Achane is there. We saw a little LJ this year. Ania Smith kind of jumped in there a little bit. We've seen a lot of different ways with Texas A&M. When their quarterback got hurt, Haynes went down. Calzada was not it, so we saw kind of offensive flux there. But he's still been very solid. He just declared for the draft, so he won't be playing the bowl game. I believe that he's your first running back off the board, and I truly believe that's where you're going to go with that pick. Breece is great. We're going to talk about Breece in a little while, but right now I'd be leaning Spiller as the first running back off the board in your rookie drafts. Now at the 104, we're going to have our first wide receiver, and I'm going Garrett Wilson. I know a lot of people like Treylon Burks. I'm a Garrett Wilson wide receiver one guy right now. He has 70 catches this year, 1,000 yards, and 12 touchdowns. He missed a game. When we see his average is around 15.5 yards reception. He's smooth. He gets off the line quick. He's got great footwork. He creates separation. There's a lot of things to like about Garrett Wilson. And I think the biggest thing is he shows up in big games. Purdue, ranked team. He had 10 catches, 126 yards, 3 touchdowns. Michigan State, ranked team. 7 catches, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Michigan, 10 catches, 119 yards, and 1 touchdown. He comes to play when it matters the most. And when you watch him play, he's just solid. Everything about him is there. He has great hands. He gets up. His athleticism jumps off the chart for me. So to me, Garrett Wilson should be the first wide receiver taken in drafts, depending on draft capital, those things. But right now, based on talent, he's my wide receiver 1. Now, next guy that I would take is probably my running back 2 of the class, and that's Breece Hall. So at the 105, you didn't take a running back, and running backs are sparse. We've seen that. Breece has done everything that he's needed to do in college. The last 2 years he's had just about 1,500 yards rushing. This year, 1,472, 253 attempts, 20 touchdowns. He also has 302 yards receiving this year, 36 receptions, 3 touchdowns. I think the lazy comparison is David Montgomery, but he has a lot of roles like David Montgomery does. I think he has good acceleration. I think he's manipulative. He can go through the holes very quickly. He's got good burst of speed at the line of scrimmage. He can catch the ball. There's a lot of things to like about Breece. He scored a touchdown every game this season, including 3 against TCU in the last game. He's looked good against Oklahoma. He did have a tough game in that game, but he's a very solid running back. I have him just slightly behind Breece, behind Spiller. So I have Breece just slightly behind there, but I still think he's a very solid running back. At the 105, you'd probably be happy to grab him. So I think that you're going to see 2 running backs go in the first 5 picks. Now, my next guy that I think is going to go at the 106, and that's Treylon Burks. Now, we know what Treylon Burks can do. He's been fantastic this season. He exceeded last season. So he has 66 catches, 1,100 yards, and 11 touchdowns this year. He's looked great for an Arkansas team that kind of surprised some people this year. Now, there are some question marks about Treylon, but, what he was able to do against Alabama, 8 catches, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was incredible. But then you look at that Georgia game where he only had 3 catches, 10 yards. And I know in a negative game script, they were throwing from behind. They shut him down a little bit. So I do worry about his consistency a bit. I think that he lacks route running for sure. And so one of those things is you worry about Treylon with hey, is he DK or is he N'Keal? And I think that he's somewhere in the middle. And so I'm not going to overdraft Treylon Burks. If he falls in this area, I think that is fine. Where does he go? I think that's a bigger thing. To me, landing spot for Treylon means more than Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson can fit in a lot of different areas. I think Treylon landing spot matters a little bit more for him, but that's just my opinion when I'm looking at these prospects and where they're at. Now, my next guy is going to be the running back 3 of my class right now, and that's Kenneth Walker. So Kenneth Walker III, 263 attempts, 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. We've seen that this year. I think the thing that worries me in PPR formats is that he has 13 catches this year. That's it. He doesn't really get asked to do a lot in that area. At Wake, he had 6 catches combined. So from a PPR format, where does Kenneth Walker's value at? I think that's the question mark. I've seen some comps to Dalvin Cook and these other guys. I'm not there yet with Kenneth. I think he's a good runner. I think that he has that. But for PPR, can he stay on the field in third down situations, especially with his porous pass blocking? He's got some work to do on that. Now that can be taught, that can be coached. But I do have some question marks about that area. So for me at the 107, it's Kenneth Walker. But that's it for the running backs. If you're taking another running back in the first round here, you're reaching. And it's a big reach. So I would be very concerned with how far you're going to reach there. I don't think after him. Now, I know I love Kyren Williams, but his size, I think the NFL has shown that. So where is he going to go? There's a lot of landing spots that are very, very, very interesting. I think in the second and third round, we're going to see that. I'm going to be doing a second and third round mock. But right now, I have Kenneth Walker there. Now, my next guy at the 108, and this is a guy that I am very high on. So I know this might be kind of a whoa for some people out there, but I'm going Jameson Williams here at the 108. 68 catches, 1,400 yards, and 15 touchdowns this year. Big playability, 21.3 average yards per catch. He is absolutely phenomenal this season. Him and Bryce have been amazing. We're going to see him again in the playoff. He could solidify that ranking even more. I love what he's been able to do. And the whole knock on him about not playing at OSU, I think that's just crap. He's playing in one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country. And for whatever reason, he couldn't get on the field, whether that was talent, whether that was because there was just other things going on in the program. He goes to Alabama and he starts. Hey, he's going to be in a long line of this. I think he's going to get first-round draft capital. His speed is what separates himself, but he's also a fluid route runner, and he's athletic. So I'm going to take Jameson at the 108, and I'm going to be okay with that. Now, the next one is going to be my quarterback off the board. Now, I want to reiterate that I wouldn't, after the first 2 guys, the depending on what happens with Malik Willis's draft capital, I would not take a quarterback in the first round. Now, having said that, I know that people overdraft quarterbacks, and for a lot of reasons that are maybe good because they need one, they have positional there. So the one guy that I think is going to get overdrafted or is going to at least go in the first round, so I wanted to include him in here, was Kenny Pickett. Now, we know Kenny. He's been in Pitt for 5 years. He has 4,300 yards this season, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Nothing taken away from Kenny as a quarterback this season at Pittsburgh. He's been amazing. I have question marks about his ability to throw the football in the NFL. I have question marks about his athleticism. I have a lot of question marks about, hey, can he do it at the next level? So for me personally, after the first two guys, I'm not going to reach on a quarterback. If I can get Carson Strong and some of these other guys in the second round, that's what I would do. But I do think that Kenny's going to be one of those guys that gets drafted all over the first. I saw him in a recent mock at the 101, and then I saw him go at the 112. So for me, I'm trying to find a happy medium for Kenny. I think the 109 is a pretty solid spot for him. Now, my next guys. Now, after you get past this, I think the last 3 picks are all going to be wide receivers, and they're very close in their tiers. The guy that I probably would take at the 110 is Purdue's David Bell. David's going to be one of those guys that's possession receiver that can create havoc over the middle, finds his zones very well. He's good at the point of attack. I do think he can sometimes struggle in traffic with catches. There's some things about him that makes me worry. Now, separation, my good friend Jared Backus from Campus the Canton talks about separating is overrated, which is fair, but I don't know if he separates the way you want to. That's why you're going to see him slip a little bit in these drafts. But 93 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 6 touchdowns this year. He's very efficient. I think he's going to be fine. He's 6'2", 205. He's got the frame that you would like. So David Bell would be going at the 110. Now, my next guy at the 111 is a guy that, again, not the highest on, but I do think that he's going to go in the first, and that's Drake London. Hey, and you can't deny what he's been able to do. 6'5", 210. He's a different kind of frame for wide receivers that we've seen. But you know what? He's been very solid. His freshman year, he's 39 catches, 567 yards, and 5 touchdowns. In 2020, he had 33 receptions, 502 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then he kind of broke out this year, 88 catches, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Obviously, he gets up for point of attack. They just throw it up to him, and he made Slovis look good, which is hard to do, to be honest. So you've seen that. I like Drake London. To me, he obviously has that injury. So where is that going to be? He went off with his injury. Is he going to recover in time? I think he's going to recover in time. But how worried are you about that injury? I think that's the question mark that you have to see. How are the NFL teams about that injury as well? So to me, those are the guys that you're like, hey, can he fit in that category? Where is he at? I still think he's going to get drafted in the first, or he's going to be a steal in the second. Now, my last guy here is Chris Olave. He didn't come out last year, so I did have some question marks about that. He didn't produce the way you'd probably want to see him produce. 65 receptions, 936 yards, and 13 touchdowns. He's a touchdown scoring machine, though. 13 touchdowns is nothing there. I think at the end of the first is where you want to get him, or the beginning of the second. I think he's going to be in that category. Again, good route runner. He's going to fill a role. I don't think he has anything more than wide receiver 2 numbers that he's going to put up in his career. That's his ceiling, in my opinion. But get him at the 112 is fine, especially if you just won your league. But that's kind of where I have the first round. Now, if we're looking at overall for wide receivers, some guys that I left off that I think that could sneak their way in there, maybe Jahan Dotson. But the biggest one is my guy, George Pickens. So George Pickens, tore his ACL for Georgia. He's going to be back in the playoff. If George Pickens has a good year and can kind of separate him, and separates himself a little bit, I could see him sneaking into these first rounds of drafts because of the talent that he has. And if he gets drafted, my thing would be like, hey, can he get drafted by the Chargers to replace Mike Williams? Someplace in there, I think I would love that. But these are our guys. This is my way too early mock draft. So we have Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Isaiah Spiller, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Treylon Burks, Kenneth Walker, Jameson Williams, Kenny Pickett, David Bell, Drake London, and Chris Olave. So let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do I have someone too high, too low? What is your opinion on Malik Willis? Should he sneak in here depending on draft capital? I left him off on purpose because I don't know if he's going to get first-round draft capital. And if he doesn't, then I'm out in the first round. Is Kenny Pickett too high, too low? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please hit that like, subscribe button. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.